Hello, Mike Grabham here again. We are working on question 22 of the top 29 questions that founders ask and that will keep them up at night. So question 22 is, how do I figure out my revenue model? Well, that is something that's quite important, is how do you make money is really what you're talking about. Let's first define revenue model. What's a revenue model? Well, a revenue model is how you make money. What is the process you use to make money for your company? So that's the revenue model. There's normally about 9 of them, and everything kind of boils down to 9 revenue models, and I'll list them in just a minute. But I want to talk a bit about that. So it's really in the process of the customer where you can add the most value. Now, there may be several different pieces of your revenue, like you may have 2 or 3 revenue sources. Most companies have 1 or 2, but there's sometimes you may have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4. But for the most part, especially when you're starting out, you probably have 1 and maybe 2. But you're focusing probably on 1 because you're trying to iterate and kind of make that the real part of it. So really it's understanding, again, in this customer journey from start to finish, where you can add the most value. And many times that is where you can start to derive revenue. Not always, but for the most part, it normally is where you add the most value. You can probably derive revenue in that customer journey from the very time you first touch them to they're going to give you money, or they get the product delivered to them. Where in that process? So there's things that the people will definitely pay for. Convenience. Especially Americans, North Americans, they love convenience. They do anything for convenience. That's why Prime is so popular with the one-day shipping. I mean, convenience is really important. So if you can look for ways where you can add convenience in your product or service. Having just a better tool. Now, that's really tough to kind of grade, but if you just have a better tool, better product, better service, it's just better, 5x, 10x better, then yeah, that's obviously where there's going to be revenue. And of course, speed. How fast can something be done? Does it increase the speed of doing something? Does it take less time to do something? All those things. What is the speed? Does it help increase or decrease the speed of doing something? And then, of course, one everyone talks about is cost. Like, does it cost less? Cost more? That's, of course, a revenue model around cost. But those are kind of 3 kind of characteristics of where value is created. Convenience, super important. Obviously, best in show. And then speed and time to market. And then, of course, just cost, pricing. But there's basically, like I said, there's 9 revenue models that most everyone talks about, and I want to talk about those 9 revenue models. I don't want to forget them. So there's ad-based revenue models, right? Ad-based selling, advertising. Of course, everybody made that famous in the early 2000s. There's affiliate revenue, where you're doing affiliate revenue with like mini sites, and again, Amazon kind of started this way back. They were super popular with, you made a small percentage off of selling books off of your site, and they just made that famous. So using affiliate revenue, and then of course transactional. That's what I think most people understand as a revenue model. You provide a product or service, and you get paid for it. And then of course subscriptions, right? Membership, subscription model. Direct sales is again just literally selling directly to someone, direct to consumer, direct to B2B, all those just direct selling, right? And then channel sales, which is indirect, right? Using a reseller. That is a tough one to really kind of be successful at, again, when you have an early stage company, because no one knows who you are. So your brand is, pretty weak in brand recognition. So it's really tough to get resellers. But when you do find the right reseller, it's golden. But so the reseller, indirect, I call it indirect sales, but resellers is another one. That's number 6. 7 is just stores, physical stores. Brick and mortar, you may hear. Just retail stores is another method, again, another revenue model. And then 8 is, a free product, and then you charge for services on that product. Maybe it's free software, and then you charge to customize that software. A fairly normal model, right? And last but not least, of course, the freemium model, where you give away the product for free, and in some process or some part of the free product, there is an upgrade to the pro features, as you probably have seen many times. So those are the basically 9 revenue models, and most every company 99.5 companies all fit in those 9 models. And again, you may have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 of those different types of revenue models in your company. But I would strongly suggest focusing on one to begin with, so you don't just lose focus. Because you got to figure out one way before you start working around the second, third, or the fourth way. So I would highly recommend that. But that is how to figure out a revenue model for your company. But that will be it for question number 22. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.